Hello, this is Laura O'Brien from the Irish Pagan School and the Mórrígan Intensive, and we are here with our class of 2023 with this fantastic playlist. We're getting so much great feedback, and what we really wanted to do was make sure that our students from this year were able to communicate into the future with our students from next year and subsequent years, because we're really trying to improve this intensive year by year. It is our 6-month Morrigan program where we are building a right relationship with the Morrigan. So, Tendai, what has your experience with this been, and what would you like to share with us?
So my experience with this was definitely not what I was expecting, right? So,
Okay, what were we expecting? What were we expecting? Like, I asked
well,
to moderate as well. So,
true. Well, considering that I did the 3-week course, I envisioned it to be more of that speed,
mm,
but based on it being called an intensive, I knew that whatever preconceptions I might have had were definitely not going to be what I was going to experience. And there was a lot more academics. It took up a lot more time than in my head I'd put aside for it. But also I have time blindness, so that's also a
yeah,
big factor. And it was a case of just doing it, even though I did feel like, oh, am I in the right place? Should I be doing this? I don't know how many times I asked myself those exact questions at the beginning, midway through, probably every single week, to be honest, that I was just like, am I prepared? Am I really doing what I should be doing? And each time I was told, yes, you fucking are, do the bloody work. And I fell behind on some things. I say I fell behind because I'm a perfectionist and I accept other people do not have to be. So, but doing that reflective work as well, like the shadow work, was pulling me so painful in a lot of ways. It was just like, look at this. This is how you live. And in a lot of ways, it was actually very, very helpful. Like many people, my world kind of blew up a little bit in a lot of areas. And like this intensive is really, really, really an intensive. And I cannot drive that home enough. It is not for the faint of hearted. It's not going to be a 1 hour thing that you'll just be sitting there and be like, oh, this is great. Da, 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 da. No, this is hard work. It will take easily, well, for me, it took easily about 3 hours per week.
mm,
Just go through the course content, the journaling, the reading the lore, the additional exercises if they were, and especially if there was shadow work, easily an additional hour or two. The
mm,
reflection alone this week made the video go from 1 hour to 3 hours
mm.
because I kept pausing and then writing essays and then being like, what was going on again? And rewinding. So if you're unsure if you have the time and you're unsure if you're willing to make the time,
Mm.
it might be a case of, do the 5-day challenge and really sit and meditate on if you really, really want to do this.
Mm.
Because once you start, you're going to get pulled by your shoestrings. Like you're getting dragged.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really fair assessment. We're getting it in the chat there as well. Like Dre is saying, 3 to 5 hours every week. I think when I estimated it, I'm pretty sure I would have said 3 to 4 hours. And then, as I was going through the weekly content, like there were definitely some weeks where there was more, some a little bit less maybe. So I'd say 3 to 5 is a really good estimate, like on average, but yeah, and like it is. And somebody else said, it's like a university course. It's not accredited, obviously, but it's like a university course if you're doing something like psych or counseling, where you have to do a lot of personal development work as well. So I suppose if I had to put it in a framework, and the emotional labor, as Dre says, um, there is definitely a lot of that and a lot of like questioning yourself. And I mean, even as the tutor, I go through it every year, and I still have asked myself those questions: Am I in the right place? So, but those are good, and look at us, we're all still here.
Exactly. And even if you don't get to the end of the course, it doesn't mean you're a failure.
No,
It
absolutely.
just means
No.
And not now.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for everybody. Like, it's really not.
It
And
is, it is intense.
yeah,
It is.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was rough. But great. Rough, but great. I loved every part of it. I hope to do it again. I plan on restarting from next week and do it again next year.
Yeah.
So I probably will be doing this quite frequently.
Brilliant. And the whole thing is designed, as I've said to you all the way through, we don't go around in circles. We're basically going on deepening spirals, because every time we learn something or go through a process, we go that little bit deeper. We get a bit more context. We find our feet a little bit stronger. And it's just, yeah, intense.
Abstained.
And what about like the knowledge that you've gained? Like, have you been able to kind of apply it in real life? Like, is it just something that's just for your spirituality, or has it been useful for you like everyday life wise?
There's a lot of knowledge that I gained that I just was not prepared to gain. So going through the lore and doing the additional further learning myself, I felt like a sponge.
Yeah.
When you just feel like, oh, there's so much in my head, I couldn't possibly fit anything else. And then all of this additional information, it just feels like it's being funneled right into your brain. And at first, you don't think you're retaining anything, but then you get asked, oh, in this exercise, do this. And you're like able to rattle off all this information. You're like, what was that? it's
I come from.
exactly. It was very much one of those experiences where it was intense on the academics, but I love reading. I love to read, and it was handy being able to read and listen. And the additional commentary, top notch. Absolutely loved it. And it was just really, I found the experience really enjoyable because it was a very all encompassing experience. Like, it was everything being ticked. It was the education, the interaction with the community, getting to talk to people, and just kind of see everybody else's journeys. All of it kind of made this nice crow corvid shaped bundle that, you're just happy to be like, oh, this is great. Every Sunday, just sitting down to a cup of tea, then going for walks, listening to the lore. And even though it was intense, it actually gave me a lot of stability when other things were going tits up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And like, we don't actually get that many Irish people in, and obviously you are. And it's just like, I'm curious from that perspective, because like a lot of what we're learning about the Morrigan like is obviously coming from outside of Ireland. So did that make a difference to you, or has it given you anything extra like to your own culture?
For me, a lot of the stuff that I would have learned about the Morrigan would have come from native Irish sources because I've been here ever since I was a kid. So my first kind of foray into paganism was Irish paganism because I've always been very linked to home. And Ireland was home. Before that, it was Zimbabwe. And I was so used to like a few kind of sus versions of the Morrigan where I was just like, that doesn't quite sound okay for me. So I just kind of left it alone.
Yeah.
And I learned so much more than that I found just kind of out there in the ether of the internet. And the information that I learned was very non-sexualized, which was fantastic, very warrior based, which really aligned with my own beliefs and just me as a person. And there was a huge comparison in what you'd find from non-native sources and what you get in this course. Especially when it's like, hey, there's this, and here's a reference to it in historical texts, rather than somebody saying, oh yeah, she poses like a DC bombshell. And you're like, where is that coming from? All of these things. So I really found that the information that was put together so nicely, like there wasn't all this kind of running around being like, oh, can I trust this source? Can I trust that source? Because it's very hard to put like green ticks on a lot of stuff you read online. So being able to have all this information, having contextual backup and like things that could verify this information was really, really nice to have. And it took a lot of the guessing out of what you're learning. It just allowed you to just be this sponge and absorb and then kind of figure out what that meant for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how I meant it to be. So I'm really delighted to hear that feedback. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, cool. Is there anything else you'd like to share, or will we finish it there?
We can stop recording there, actually.
Yeah, for the recording. Cool. Okay, thanks so much, Tendai, and thank you again for your moderation. You were a tech person, and it was it was really cool to have you on board. So I really appreciate that. For anybody who was, especially at the start, like it was a new system, and even for me, it was a new system. So it was really useful to have you there. Just, there was a lot of kind of step-by-step instruction posts, especially at the start, which I for one really appreciated. It was all the mods were amazing, but that was one element that you really brought your A game. So thanks for that.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's here. I know there's quite a few of our class who aren't here, but I really, really enjoyed watching your videos, hearing your journeys. It was wonderful. It just felt like, oh, it's friend time every Sunday or every Monday, and then just go like it made things that I was very bad at procrastinating about so much easier when I was like, oh, I can watch a few videos here. I can, like do these exercises, and being able to share so much while having other people share, it made it a nice kind of two-way system rather than just kind of like screaming into the ether and not getting anything back. It was really nice to get that feedback, and I just want to say thank you all.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Tendai.